hitting the right button.
Okay.
Okay, John, you're on the air, and let me just read the question real quickly, and we'll see if we got it right. You are engaged to you're a theist, you're engaged to an atheist, and you have a child together, and you want to ask about atheism and how to raise the child. Is that right?
Yes. How are you guys? And Joe rowdied you. I think Joe rowdied you guys up for me. So
you know, we're good, but I'm going to tell you, you're talking to the two hosts, and there's a few more, but you're talking to two hosts today who neither of whom have kids. So we'll do the best we can.
No problem. Yeah, so, and don't judge me now because,
I'm trying to keep an open mind. This is
my fiance and we have a kid, so.
We're not talking about, we're not going to ask you about defending your beliefs here. We're just going to try and help you with your dilemma. So you go ahead.
So we have a 2-year-old, and she's an atheist. I'm a Christian, just so you know. I just say biblical Christian. You could say evangelical or whatnot, but biblical Christian, I believe what the Bible states. So, and so we have different worldviews on how we should raise our child. My worldview, I think there is an author to life, and I believe really where she comes from. She doesn't really think about it too much. Mm-hmm. There could be, there could not be. She could really care less. Okay. She's very intelligent with education and DNA and all, you know, and evolution and all that stuff. But she doesn't think that.
You say?
Yeah, he said 2. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2.5.
You know it's about evolution?
So
she's a 2-year-old?
Let me just ask, and this is, okay, and I promise.
Wow.
Okay, now wait a minute, John.
She's very smart. Listen,
wow.
she's smart. Okay?
I just want to,
okay.
John, I have a question, and the reason I'm asking is just to get a handle on the environment here. So when you say that you're a Bible-believing Christian, just to kind of get where we're coming from, are you a young earth creationist?
No.
Okay, so you are a little bit flexible as far as like the creation timeline and stuff like that. You're okay with certain sciences, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm still studying it.
And that's cool.
I was a Christian when I was like 19 or 20, and then I kind of fell off and then became like a non-practicing Christian for all these years. I got with my fiance. We had a baby. I wasn't a Christian. Not too long ago, I kind of recommitted my life. So I'm still learning. I don't, you guys actually might know more about the Bible than me, to tell you the truth.
Okay. But, I just wanted to, when you said you believe the Bible, I come from a biblical literalist background, and so I wanted to kind of gauge where you were in that. And it sounds like you might be a little more flexible. So that's cool.
I've done some research on how to explain, like, in the beginning, and then an apologist will state,
specifically when it comes to, quote, raising the child, where is the conflict coming in?
Well, my question to really why I called is I think my daughter has, all of us, but just addressing my daughter, she has a purpose to life. She has a meaning, and I just can't fathom that with the creation, the Big Bang, and the whole 9 yards, nothing was conscious when it made that decision. Therefore, there's really no purpose, and it's really just what humans. Okay, all right. Well,
let me stop here for a minute. So what we're saying, I'm sure that her mom also loves her and wants to see her succeed in life. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Okay. So you both love the girl, and you both want to see her do well and succeed in life. There's a very minor difference in how you might frame that. Like, you look at it like God has a plan for her where she's going to be hopefully he has a good plan for her, and she will live long and be successful and happy. And I'm sure that your fiance is thinking maybe in a little bit different terms. I mean, she might not think there's a plan, but she also would want for that. The daughter lives long, she's healthy, she's happy, she's successful. You both want the same thing, you just look at it from slightly varying perspectives. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
From an atheist perspective, when I hear the word purpose, it's overloaded sometimes, and I would distinguish a capital P purpose from a little p purpose, where the capital P purpose might be the grand purpose or God's purpose for a particular child.
I guess what I'm saying is, our caller, John, may look at it that way.
Yes.
But the point is, he's going to be supportive of this little girl, and kind of, we know from our own histories in dealing with theists, whatever the little girl is doing, as long as it's in a positive direction, John is probably going to say God's purpose for her is this positive thing.
Right, but I was just going to make the point that atheists, believe in purpose as well, but it's a little p purpose of, we make our own,
but I'm pretty sure
goals in life and our own
John, I want to just say, I hope for your daughter's success in all things. Like, I really hope the best for your daughter, but just kind of as a one-off here, as a tangential thing, I'm pretty sure that if she ended up addicted to some horrible drug like methamphetamine or something, you would not view that as her purpose, right? You would not sit back and say, God's purpose is that she's going to go down as a meth addict. I'm pretty sure you would say, you would probably go to your daughter and say, I believe that God has a better purpose for you than this. Is that pretty correct?
Correct, and my fiance would probably just tell her that that's bad. And don't do that.
Right. So you guys are on board, regardless of what you believe and what your fiance believes. You want her to do well, and you both will use the paradigms that you come from in order to push forward her success.
Correct. I think the big difference between me and my fiance is the fact that knowing reality, Noah's Ark and stuff like that, reading my child those kind of stories, I'm okay with that, but she might look at it and go, well, that's silly, you're teaching our daughter some nonsense.
Okay, do you take the Noah story as literal? Like, I know you don't take the creation story as literal.
I haven't done my whole investigation. I'm still reading through the Bible, but yes, I believe that happened. How did it happen? I don't know.
I'm going to say keep studying, because I think a lot of times a good way to look at these Bible stories would be to present them in ways that look at sort of the lessons behind them, right? Like there might be a lesson to be learned about the idea of industry and preparation, and there's certain things that you can teach people from these stories, and it might be a good compromise, right, for you to maybe present these as parables almost, or have you ever seen Aesop's Fables, right? Aesop's Fables, they're like those stories, and then they have a little lesson that goes with them. And it might be a good compromise with you and your fiancé to look at this as an opportunity for you to sort of familiarize your daughter with the stories, but maybe look for a deeper lesson as opposed to the surface sort of, there was a global flood and it lasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And if you start looking at these cues, you start to see that these are cues of a fable. And I think you're going to find it if you really look at the information about whether or not there was a global flood, and whether, if you're looking at scientific information and not apologetic information, you will start to see the reality of it. Right. And so, but I don't think there's a problem to tell the story and talk to your daughter about what she gets out of it or what lessons might come from something like that. I mean, clearly this is a cultural story with a cultural context. There are other flood stories, and those stories are told for a reason, right? I mean, they were told for reasons. People related to them something about their cultures and something about themselves. And I don't think there's any problem with telling your daughter the stories. And there are some really cute children's Bible books that have like the little stories. I would be a little put off, I think, if I was with someone who was telling my daughter that these stories were fact. But I would probably be okay if they were looking at the stories as a method to sort of talk about themes or talk about people, or what does this tell us,
If you got with a spouse and you guys had a child, and that spouse then say became a Christian for whatever reason, and then that spouse started talking to, let's say the child is now 10, so they have more of an understanding, and talking to a 2-year-old.
Okay.
Now, if your spouse started then talking about really, Jesus is the key story of the whole thing. So, and then trying to explain why we believe in Jesus and how you get to heaven and the whole story in 2 minutes, would you have an issue with that?
Here's my question. This is the thing that would probably scare me the most as an atheist. Do you believe in a God that would send your daughter to hell? Like you've seen this baby, and she's 2 years old. Does the God you believe in, is he a God of love, or is he a God that would torture her for eternity for anything she could do in this life?
A 2.5-year-old?
Well, not just 2.5. Let's say she grows to be 20. She grows up to be 20 and she becomes a doctor and she goes to medical school. Or let's say she becomes a meth addict and everything goes horrible. Yeah. Do you think that is the God that you would believe in and love and worship a God that would torture your child for eternity?
If I believe in the Bible, which I do, then I need to own it and understand what it's relaying and stuff like that. So I'm not going to read a section, I don't like that, or I like this. I think other Christians, maybe Mormons and stuff like that.
Well, the Bible condones killing and slavery, so we're already kind of off the rails here.
Wait a minute. My goal here is to focus on. I want to focus on John's issue. So, okay, then my question.
I think that if my daughter was 25 years old and she was drunk out of her mind and she got in a car accident and killed herself, I'm not going to lay down in bed and go, great, I'm glad she's in hell right now. It's not something that
do you think that an eternity of torture an appropriate God is an eternity of torture an appropriate penalty for killing yourself in a car because you were drunk?
For any finite crime.
I mean, do you think that that's justice?
I don't think we send ourselves, if we're talking about the Christian faith, we're sending ourselves to heaven or to hell. Thy will be done. So,
well, except wait a minute.
If I want to rebel against, if I don't accept Jesus,
all right, I'm not gonna go down.
If my daughter doesn't want,
it's cool. I'm not gonna go down the road. I got the answer I needed. Okay, the answer that I need is that yes, you do believe that your daughter could ultimately end up in hell, tortured forever if she doesn't accept Jesus.
She doesn't want Jesus here. She doesn't want him in heaven.
So she needs to be tortured for eternity. I'm totally not down with that, but I'm not here to argue that with you. I think it's messed up, and I think that you could do some research on some religious concepts of hell, because what you might find is that even the biblical concept of hell isn't what you maybe think it might be. The Bible itself is written in a context, and the entire...
Right. And at one point it says fire, and at one point it says total darkness or grinding.
Right, but there are plenty of Christians who would argue that there is no such thing as hell, and that what is understood as hell in the Bible is a very big misconception. And so what I'm saying is you might want to look into that. It could help if your view is altered on that. If I were an atheist and my spouse were telling my daughter that anything she could do in this life was deserving of eternal torture, that would bother me a lot.
And I've got alarm bells going off that you think, what I'm hearing
and by the way,
is
that
you're...
I will never force my daughter to be a Christian.
Right,
so.
but
hold on.
My fear would be...
Hold on. You're saying that if she doesn't become a Christian, she's going to burn in hell, and boy, your wife is there teaching her the wrong thing.
Right, but she wouldn't.
If she doesn't believe that, then why would she care, though?
You talking about why would your wife care? Because you're terrorizing your daughter. That's what would bother her.
I think if you're a Christian and you're really a Christian because you're afraid of going to hell, then that's a major issue.
If there was no hell,
what about your daughter going to hell?
I don't think Christians should be living their life on fear.
It doesn't matter if you're telling a child that she deserves to be tortured forever. Let me just tell you, there's something called the structural analysis of, it's a behavioral analysis structure, SASB. And what they use is the idea that you never do anything right as a way to really mess up your child. Like telling your kid this is basically a recipe for giving your child personality dysfunctions later in life. And if you're telling your child that she's deserving of eternal torture and you're drilling this into her head repeatedly, I would be very concerned that you're basically setting our daughter up for personality disorders later in life and a lot of therapy.
And you're setting her against her mother.
If you taught if your spouse or say me and my spouse, if I solely taught my daughter on Jesus' teachings alone, which is love and all the other 9 yards, but is that an issue if I'm not throwing hell down her throat
Well, Jesus taught to leave your family and follow him. Did you know that?
Well, okay,
Jesus taught to leave your family and follow him.
We can go down a lot of roads, but I want to stick with the situation here. And you might want to, I'm going to recommend an author to you, Bart Ehrman. It's what is it? No,
E-A-R. Yeah.
E-R-H-M-A-N. And Bart was a literalist who went to Bible college to study the ancient languages in order to be able to read the Bible in the original manuscripts. And what he learned changed his whole view of taking the Bible as a very literal book. I recommend that you read him. I'm not saying it's going to change your mind about anything. I'm just thinking that it might be a good thing for you to at least take into your body of thought for consideration.
Right.
Because there's a lot that you can use the Bible for as far as learning and cultural and human. I mean, these messages stick around for as long as they do because they do carry some sort of a message that people find valuable. If you want to use the book and use it as a valuable tool, even if you believe that God had some hand in producing it, that's what you believe, and okay. But when it starts to become a problem is when when these negative messages start to come in and people start to say, the God of hellfire and brimstone and torture. And
well, yeah, the people that are standing outside of buildings and their sign solely says you're going to hell. I would have a conversation with somebody rather than holding a sign. I don't ever remember reading.
Right.
Well, if you're talking about the Westboro Baptist Church, they're often right in their interpretation. That's what the Bible says.
Well, if they take
right, but Jesus himself never walked around screaming, "You're going to hell." So
I'm just saying that to me, the messages that might concern your partner more will be the negative messages. And before I would go whole hog on selling these messages, that side of it to a child, I would do a lot of reading from the opposition. I would do a lot of reading from people who say that it's not a literal hell. I would do a lot of reading from people who say the Bible may not be literal, to at least consider what they're saying before you start to give her literal, very scary messages. So at least do that kind of study to sort of question yourself there and see if maybe your handle might be flexible on that, kind of like it was flexible on the creation story. Mm-hmm. There is no cure. I can't offer you a magic bullet on this one. If I were your partner and this were our child and I thought you were going to start telling her about a literal hell, I would lose it. So that would be
our conversations get, a lot. Some of our friends go, whoa, a Christian and an atheist, how does that work out? But our conversations are very interesting and
that's good. As this child gets older, though, it's going to get more stressful if you believe her eternal soul is in jeopardy, because you're going to get more concerned about her. She's your daughter, you love her, and if you believe that she's going to be in eternal torture jeopardy, this is going to start to become a bigger and bigger issue. And so my advice would be to start reading some other authors who may take a different view of hell and that sort of literal context of the reading. And I would look at Bart Ehrman and just kind of give him a read. You might read it and reject it, and that's fine, but it can't hurt to just see what his experience was. I think it was Misquoting Jesus is the one that I'm thinking of, and it has to do with his understanding.
Got a number of books.
Misquoting Jesus was a very easy read that talks a little bit about the historic manuscripts and how they're viewed, and it might change your view of the literal stance that you take on some issues, but he's not going to be selling you that God doesn't exist or anything like that. It's just about reading the Bible.
On a little bit lighter note, I thought your question was going to be about religious upbringing of the child, and I think the very best thing you can do for your child is to let her explore both yours and your wife-to-be's faiths, and maybe other faiths too, and let her make her own mind. and not try to mold her, but try to encourage her to make good decisions.
I need to ask if the crew is okay staying a little bit
we're
longer.
already over time.
Yeah, and I've really done poorly on regulating the calls. Definitely something I'm going to have to work on. I do want to take a couple more calls, though, if we can do that, but I need to ask the crew to give me a sign.
You spent so much time on Joe. Poor Joe.
All
We
right.
got a thumbs up.
All right,
a
well,
real sign.
I'm going to let you go, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, you guys have a good day.
Sure, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.